and welcome to GWON, the Global Women United for Peace Against NATO. Welcome to this webinar in which we begin to cover the concepts of neutrality and non-alignment. GWON is a collection of strong women from across the world who deeply love our planet. We cherish the universal principles of equality, justice, and peace, as affirmed by the United Nations Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We recognise that NATO's decisions since 1991 have in large part been responsible for developing global confrontation, and we seek the abolition of NATO. The non-aligned movement is still in existence. Not a lot of people know that. It is a forum of 121 countries out of the total of 193 in the world and represents 55% of the world's population. It is a significant grouping. The non-aligned movement, or NAM as we shall refer to it, is not formally aligned with or against any major power bloc, and was founded with the view to advancing the interests of developing countries in the context of the Cold War. It is the second largest grouping of states worldwide. The increasingly wobbly UN is in fact the largest grouping. The newly awakening demands for neutrality come from the global south, working against the odds to follow their own path to sovereignty, economic and political independence. Many of us in the collective north are joining them in the struggle for peace, for development and for social justice. Carney's call at Davos could be the restart of this non-aligned movement. So thank you all for joining us. And when you get a copy of the video, please give us a like. Please hit the like button because this encourages the algorithm to put our video before more people. So we have a great panel of speakers from many different backgrounds to start this first webinar of 2026. Our first speaker is Elke Swinger, and she will speak to the history of non-alignment. She's a member of the German Peace Council and former World Peace Council delegate to China, Vietnam, and Venezuela. So Elke, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us. The floor is yours.
Because the non-aligned movement spans a long period of time. It began during the Cold War, as you had told also, in a bipolar world and has led to the development of multipolarity since the beginning of the millennium. In brief, I will mention the basic principles and guidelines of the NAM, some summit meetings, the cooperation of the NAM with other organizations, conclusions for us as peace movement. After the horrors of the Second World War, which claimed 26 million Soviet and 35 million Chinese lives, described by Domenico Losurdo as the greatest colonial war in human history, the UN was founded in 1945. Its UN Charter is the light after the darkest times. It calls for the preservation of world peace and international security, the development of friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples, and respect for the sovereign equality and territorial integrity of all members. The colonies were clearly excluded from these obligations under international law. They intensified their struggle for independence and liberation. In 1955, the first anti-colonial conference took place in Bandung, Indonesia. Representatives from 29 Asian and African states came together. Its participants represented empires, republics, and communist countries. Some countries were formally independent, others still under colonial rule. Despite their political diversity, they were united in their rejection of colonization, racism, and nuclear armament. Excuse me. The most prominent representatives were Sukarno from Indonesia, Zhou Enlai from China, Nasser from Egypt, Nehru from India, and Nkrumah from Ghana. Similar to the Charter of the United Nations, they emphasized sovereignty, territorial integrity, equality, non-interference, and renunciation of aggression as the basis for peaceful coexistence. In the spirit of Bandung, the above-mentioned leaders, with the exception of Zhou Enlai, met again in Belgrade in 1961 in Tito's initiative. In 1961, the world was divided into two camps. With the founding of NATO in 1948, the USA led the Western power bloc. Faced with forced confrontation with its ideological opponent, the Soviet Union, the latter founded the Warsaw Pact in 1955. As a counterweight, NAM positioned itself neutrally outside the confrontation between the two military blocs. It wanted to pursue its own political, economic, and cultural path. The 5 principles of peaceful coexistence developed in Bandung were fundamental, describing the organization as a movement characterized its openness and willingness to discuss different positions. Examples of summit meetings that are historical snapshots. Lusaka Summit 1970. The member nations added as aims to the movement the peaceful resolution of disputes and the abstention from the big power military, alliance and pacts, opposition to stationing of military bases in foreign countries. The more than 900 US military bases, most of them in countries of the South, contradict the NAM principle of neutrality. The Algiers Summit, 1973, a few days before the coup in Chile and the US ceasefire with North Vietnam, there was condemnation of the US military presence and interference in the international affairs of the peoples of Indochina. Reform of the world trade system, independent control over multinational corporations, own rights over profits and marketing of resources. This in accordance with Article 1 of the UN Social and Civil Convent of 1966. The 1983 summit in New Delhi. Increase in bilateral conflicts, differences between oil exporting and non-oil exporting countries, economic dependence on one power or another, The 1992 summit in Jakarta called for nuclear disarmament, the US obliged to enforce all disarmament treaties. A pity there was the openness to the Hague appeal for responsibility to project. 2024 NAM summit at the same time as the G77 in Kampala, Uganda. Both organizations strongly condemned Israel's action against Palestine. The UN is called upon to take action. South Africa, lawsuit against Israel is filed with the International Court of Justice. 1964, the group of 77 is founded. Its goal to strengthen South-South cooperation and improve the position of developing countries in the world market. It is the largest group within the UN with 124 members. It cooperates with NAM, which has 120 members. At the beginning of the 21st century, Latin America is becoming increasingly independent from its status as the backyard of the USA, United States. With the Bolivian Revolution under Chavez, the first steps toward a multipolar world are being taken. Foundation of the ALBA organization, Bolivarian Alternatives for Our America. Foundation CELAC as a subcontinent of peace. The following NAM presidents support the emancipation of the subcontinent: Nelson Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, Fidel Castro, Raúl Castro, Nicolás Maduro. The development of a multipolar world through the following organizations and platforms. So they are in Asia, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and ASEAN. Cross-continental, BRICS and BRICS Plus. Their principles are cooperation instead of confrontation, peace through development, and pushing back against the hegemonic power of the dollar. The BRICS countries in particular follow the maxim that they are not Western, but not against Western, not anti-Western. Countries of the global South and East cooperate with countries of the collective West for mutual benefit. One example is the New Silk Road. Their infrastructure projects follow the principle of peace through development. The NAM is also changing its position of non-alignment to the norm of multi-alignment in the sense of broad cooperations. Indonesia, Turkmenistan, and Vietnam officially describe themselves as neutral. Non-alignment and neutrality were handled differently by the presidents at the summit meetings. Indonesia under Suharto, 1992, close relationship with the United States, worst massacre of communists in 1962. Cuba, 1979-2006, saw the Soviet Union as a partner of the countries of the South. Venezuela sees Russia and China as partners. The principle of neutrality is not ideologically defined, socialist or capitalist. It primarily means not making one's territory available to either power bloc for military or occupation purposes.
Okay.
For the anti-colonial,
Have you got much further to go? Is there much more?
No, I'm not. For the anti-colonial and anti-imperialist movement, neutrality is a statement that the military should only be used for defense. In this respect, NAM is a source of inspiration for us. So, when asked whether NAM is still any significance of China, a Chinese broadcaster answered, powerful countries, and that I think it's important, powerful countries are still pushing bloc confrontation. The global south is still facing economic and political pressure. It is more imperative to strengthen solidarity and cooperation to make the global government system, giving the development countries united front and platform for pushing back. This leads to the idea of a global class struggle. Countries of the South that promote peaceful development, and we, as anti-NATO peace activists, stand together against warmongering NATO states that want to maintain and expand their unipolar world. A multipolar world in peaceful coexistence is the other side of the global class struggle. We also defend the UN Charter, are an active part of a multipolar, peaceful world. And that world belongs to women and men. At the NAM summits, I have seen too many men. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Elke. And you should know that she is actually speaking today from Berlin. That was a great introduction. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Now, to our listeners, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box, which you'll find in the bottom of your screen, in the black bar at the bottom. And if you could just pop a, simple, think it through, so coherent question at the end of our speakers, we will introduce your questions and try to see who would like to answer them. All right. So thank you so much for your presentation. And thank you for all of you across the world, I see, who are joining us. Right, our next speaker is Biljana Vankovska, who is speaking to us from Macedonia today. Now, she's speaking to Non-Alignment and Peace as the title. She is the Professor of International Relations and Peace Studies from Macedonia. She's a board member of the Transnational Foundation for Peace and Future Research, and she is member of the No Cold War Collective. Biljana, if you're ready, please make your presentation now.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind invitation, first of all. And I have to emphasize that this is my first time being among so many strong women, as Pippa says, who are for peace and against NATO. Usually I find myself among many pro-NATO people, and I am a lonely voice where I come from. This is a very peculiar situation for someone who actually comes from the territory of former Yugoslavia. As Elke explained in her introductory lecture, the NAM was born in Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia did not survive, but NAM did. NAM is alive. My intention here is, or was, to focus more on today's situation, how NAM is dealing with this changing world, rapidly changing world, and I usually like to quote here Gramsci, as probably many of us. The old system is dying, the new one is struggling to be born. It is a time of morbid symptoms, it's a time of monsters, and that sounds so true. Actually, a part of what I was supposed to say was already explained well by Elke, and I'll try to focus on what was not said. Let me start with the reason I accepted this invitation. Both non-alignment and peace have even a personal meaning to me. As already said, I come from that country, and the movement is just 3 years older than myself. So actually, the whole my life, I grew up with that idea. And when I was a little child in the school, we lived with non-alignment not only as a foreign policy orientation. It was a part of our unique identity in the world. We believe, for good or bad, that that myth about Yugoslavia being special, not belonging to the West or to the East, that it was following its own path to socialism and played a significant role on the international arena, that was something that brought us a lot of pride, national pride, and sense for justice, for solidarity, for internationalism. So you can imagine that as school children, we were collecting small donations to help children in Gaza or Biafra or elsewhere in the world. So that was a symbolic gesture, of course, but that was also educational thing. It was how we learned culture of peace. It is how indirectly we tend to identify ourselves with those who were not as lucky as we were. The destiny can make really great turns and ironical shifts. So last October, I was sitting as a member of the jury of conscience of the Gaza Tribunal in Istanbul. The tribunal was formed by Professor Richard Falk, as you may know. And, I found myself in a situation as an elderly person now, as a retired professor, still deal with Palestine. It was really a very emotional thing to realize that when you were a child, you were dealing with that, and it's still an open issue. But when it comes to peace, believe it or not, I first time learned about the academic field of peace research only when my country fell apart in a disastrous, catastrophic bloodshed. So it was the first time after we suffered as a collective this trauma that we realized that we have to find out what makes people fight each other, how to prevent war, because we seem to took for granted, peace for granted in former Yugoslavia. We believe that we are so unique that nothing bad can happen to us. So we started learning about ourselves and about the world and how to learn from the other people's experiences and how to share our experience for others not to repeat it. So actually, I'm not sure that I'm the right person to speak about the peace and non-alignment, because non-alignment is something forgotten, completely forgotten among the young generations on the territory of former Yugoslavia. They're all pro-NATO. If you ask my students to tell you anything about NATO and its summits, in a way, just Elke listed the summits of NAM, they could list the summits of NATO. and tell you all about its strategic development, declarations, strategies, documents, so on. They know nothing about non-aligned movement. They know nothing about the Yugoslav history. They believe that everything starts with TINA principle. There is no alternative. They grew up in that new atmosphere. So our tonight's webinar is, in my view, something very rebellious, very subversive, very, very important, because we are talking about a topic that is usually not seen in the mainstream media, but not even in alternative media. For this presentation, I tried to check, to do some search on the media, including, as I said, the social media. And I realized that there is not much talk about NAM today. There is much more talk about spheres of interest or spheres of security, zones of this or that, multipolar world, who are the members of this new structure of power. But NAM is somehow silent. In reality, we do know that NAM has continued its existence in a, I would say, maybe not so spectacular way, but still consistent. If you check the latest declarations and positions, political positions on Gaza or Venezuela recently, they really prove that that there is some sort of normative pillar that still exists, that some kind of moral compass that at least on a declaratory level exists. So they speak in one voice, as we would say. But on the other hand, the fact that they're not present, the movement is not present in the media is not a problem of NAM, but of the media world that is completely under corporative power. It's controlled. It is used for propaganda, and mostly, of course, Western propaganda. So whoever speaks today about alternatives or peace may find herself or himself on a blacklist, on a sanction list, to be debanked or to be sanctioned in various ways. So that's why I think that it is important to talk that NAM is here, NAM exists. We should maybe try to get out of this Western way of thinking and Western epistemology and knowledge production and concepts that actually say, no, only this is the right path. Everything else is wrong or leads to authoritarianism or something worse. Yes, people mentioned that it is interesting that even the Canadian Prime Minister mentioned the necessity of some sort of new non-aligned movement for middle or small countries. And he was probably not aware that NAM exists at this very moment. Why NAM exists, it's, as Elke explained, it was due to the historical circumstances, but that was also a visionary thing. It was a brave thing to to tell the world, no, this is not a bipolar world. There are not only two powers, and they do not and must not decide on life and death only among them, and to leave the rest of the world to live in fear of mad, total destruction of the world. So that was a leading road for some time, but then with the fall of the Berlin Wall, there was this catastrophic unipolar moment of United States that actually caused a lot of casualties, this responsibility to protect doctrine and everything to legitimize interventionism for the sake of human rights, democracy, and God knows what else. But wherever the West intervened, actually left nothing behind. And to mention one more paradox about my region, we were like a founding member of the NAM, and nowadays all the successor countries are actually colonies. We are suffering from neo-colonialism, equally as everybody else is suffering from hyper-imperialism. So we still have this powerful, how to say, enemy or mechanism or organism that keeps us hostages throughout our lives. And when we look at the NAM and what is the real power or normative power, soft power, of course, not military one, it is not much different from what it used to be, because with the exception of a few states, most of them are still underdeveloped. They're still struggling with basic things. And if we talk about peace, we cannot skip the story about violence. And let me just remind us of Gandhi and his statement that the worst form of violence is poverty. And if the NAM countries are in the poorer part of the world, with few exceptions, of course, but even India, that is in statistics on the top of these developed, let's say, powers, lives with a huge amount of population really struggling for daily life. So nothing much has changed. We are still, NAM is a non-aligned movement. I see somebody asking in the chat. So we are using this acronym to spare some time. Is it necessary? Yes, it is necessary. I would like to see NAM in a more, how to say, structured way. It is not an international organization. It doesn't have a charter, a basic document that would need to be signed by all states and ratified and all that. So it doesn't have secretariat. It doesn't have, institutional bodies and everything else. So it is quite loose. And to be honest, it is very painful to see some of its members, for example, Vietnam. The representative of Vietnam was sitting next to Donald Trump the other day in Davos, and Vietnam paid for a permanent seat in the so-called Board of Peace. So this is not a consistent situation. Not to mention India playing in BRICS and then in Quad and then doing some other things. So we don't have this feeling of solidarity. We don't have anymore this feeling of internationalism, of something that unites us, no matter if we come from the West or South or wherever. The space in the global arena is in a disarray, but there are some signals that other forms of organization are growing, such as BRICS. I'm not very confident that BRICS is doing always the right things or doing it in the right manner, but still it is an alternative. Otherwise, we would just need to capitulate and to say, yes, Mr. Trump or the empire, and to bow down and to follow the disastrous way the world is run. Pippa, if I have more time, or I should close. I can't hear you. You're muted.
2 minutes, yes.
2 minutes. Okay, just to sum up. So we need to cherish what we have and promises some sort of peace, or I would say resistance. This is not peace. This is, of course, when we mention word peace, we have in mind Johann Galtung's idea of positive peace, not only absence of direct military violence, but we need just structures domestically and internationally. We don't have that. The United Nations are in collapse, and I think that all our quest for alternatives come from the fact that United Nations are failing. They failed seriously, especially with the resolution on Gaza last November, that opened actually the door for Trump's international organization. This is really something that is shameful for the UN and for everybody that voted or not voted or abstained during the vote in the UN Security Council. And just to finish up here with another thought of Professor Falk. Recently, he took part in a webinar like this. And if you may know, he is one of the best professors of international law ever. He is a brilliant man, really, of 95, and very lucid, and really still have to share with us so many things. He put the right diagnosis of UN. The Charter of UN is Gandhian, is full of wonderful values, principles. So it designed a world that should not repeat the horrors of the wars before. But the institutional structure, the UN Security Council, is actually embedding the hegemony, the power politics in it. So there is this contradiction that makes us seek solutions out of United Nations or to reform it, even though I don't know how. Many tried, but so far we don't see any willingness on the powerful states to give up their veto power to others, or to share, or to be equal with the others. Thank you so much, and sorry if I took too long.
Oh, Biljana, that was so fascinating. Thank you. And a couple of points which have stuck with me and perhaps should stick with all of us is that you said that there was a time when you never thought anything could happen to you. And that's what we all think, really, many of us anyway. But in Minneapolis right now, I think they must be absolutely horrified what's happening to their city. And they're showing it in good numbers, which is great. And yes, I agree with you about the UN. I think taking it out of America would be a good start. But the veto system, it's set up to fail. It's set up to just prolong the hegemony of the colonial empires, such as they are now. Well, thank you so much. Well, just to prove that we're not just women, we accept as well. We have a gentleman now who is going to talk to us about the neither East nor West situation. Moji Agha is speaking from Boulder, Colorado. He's originally from Iran. He is a Sufi monk with 40 years of professional, clinical, and academic studies in behavioral, cultural, and ecological studies, highlighting conflict, understanding, and healing. So, Moji, if you'd like to unmute yourself and make your presentation now, that would be great.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's wonderful to be on this panel. I'm honored, and I didn't decide to be born male, but I was born a human being. And 99.9% of the genes of every single human being is identical. So I am a human being and who happens to have a Y chromosome. And I am, first of all, I am wearing black because I'm mourning the people who have been killed in Iran, at least 4,000 people, and in part instigated by Israel and Trump, and the regime in Iran has dutifully fulfilled the dream of Netanyahu, i.e. an Iran that is a failed state, or it's so repressive of its own people that it serves the empire. So later I will talk about internal despotism and external colonialism as two sides of the same coin. And that was, you can see Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh, and around my neck, if you will, I put it here. I gave a talk. I'm a founder of Mossadegh Legacy Institute. Dr. Mossadegh was overthrown in 1953 by the CIA and MI6 with the collaboration of the Soviet Union. And that's something a lot of people don't know. And also I'm wearing a Woman Life Freedom pin. So I want to share with you a very rare piece of news that has survived. And this is a news that appeared or was published on February 1st, 1952. February 1, 1952, a year before the coup in Iran, the regime change coup in Iran. And it was published in the Hindu, which is the quote-unquote New York Times of India. And it says, and it refers to, in the second paragraph, to the relationship that Dr. Mossadegh had with Jawaharlal Nehru and with Gandhi. Mossadegh hails Mahatma Gandhi. The Indian Embassy and the Indo-Iranian Association in Tehran observed Mahatma Gandhi Remembrance Day on the 30th of January 1952. Among the highlights was this message by Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh, Persian Prime Minister. Quote, Mahatma Gandhi was a rare human being who, with a miraculous sneak, i.e. nonviolence, brought India up to the heights on which she stands today. In Gandhiji's dictionary, religious differences and sectarian prejudices had no place whatsoever. In fact, he was the greatest supporter of Indian Muslims. Gandhiji not only stabilized the greatness of his country in his own lifetime, but also left behind men like Jawaharlal Nehru, who is a finished product of the Gandhi school. And of course, as LK mentioned, Nehru was one of the founders of the non-aligned movement, or NAM. And the second piece of news I want to share with you is a weird piece of news, 3 days old, reported by BBC Persian. Hold on. And it says, in January 21, 2026, reported by BBC Persian and translated by me, following an emergency meeting of the Security Council about Iran, the U.S. ambassador at the United Nations criticized South Africa for inviting Iran's naval forces to participate in the BRICS military exercise held off the coast of South Africa at Cape Town, while the Iranian government was violently suppressing protesters. US said that South Africa's cooperation with Iran was not in accordance to the principles of non-alignment, but rather a choice to stand by the Iranian regime. The reason I call this a weird statement, hold on, is because I think it was the U.S. ambassador to the UN who doesn't even know the meaning of non-alignment. Therefore, he, or is it a she? Anyhow, doesn't matter. Thinks of, says South Africa is violating principles of non-alignment, which the number one killer of which is the U.S. As we all know, that the South Africa is violating non-alignment principles because it is cooperating with Iran. See how Orwellian this sentence is. Orwellian as in 1984, everything means the opposite. So I want to share with you, let me see if this works. And let me share. Do you have the, I think you must have the what I'm showing in the.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Great. A direct legacy of Dr. Mossadegh, who was a forefather of the non-aligned movement, is a response to either East or West imposed by the Cold War in a collaboration between the US and the Soviet Union, which dictated either East or West. Mossadegh said neither East nor West. And as you can see, on top of Iran's entrance, the entrance to Iran's foreign ministry, that word, these two words, neither East nor West, along with Islamic Republic, is everybody that enters Iran's foreign ministry sees this. And so to me, NAM means nonviolence. Why? Because the logic of the collaborative relationship between the East and the West, because they need one another as enemy, that logic is logic of savagery. So at least the spirit of NAM, one of the forefathers of which is Mossadegh of Iran, the Gandhi of Iran, is rejecting that we don't want to play in this, we don't want to be part of this jungle. We are civilized. So Mossadegh's central nonviolent legacy, therefore, neither East nor West, he said famously, internal despotism of the Shah at the time, the Shah of Iran, internal despotism and external colonialism, UK, US, Israel, are two sides of the same coin. They are mutually codependent, whether as friends or as enemies, structurally unequal by definition. Of course, these enemies are not equal. So we should nonviolently resist both internal repression and external aggression. And this is something that I was chanting I'm a Sufi monk or a dervish. I was part of the interfaith leaders, as they called our group, in early March of 2003, before the US attacked Iraq. And we were chanting, the interfaith folks, internal repression, external aggression, external aggression, internal repression. Internal repression and external aggression are the same thing, basically, as internal despotism and external colonialism are two sides of the same coin. And in terms of the relationship between internal repression and external aggression, today we can note what's happening in Minneapolis, and the horrible invasion of civil society and a civilized place by the forces of ICE, and of course it is in order to remind the American and the Iranian and everybody else that we are in charge and we will do whatever we like, including removing the head of a state called Venezuela and threatening Iran with military attack again. So internal repression and external aggression are basically internal despotism and external colonialism having come home. The chickens have come to roast at home to the so-called civilized global north. And so why we need to, as in NAM and other civilized organization, why we should resist internal despotism and external colonialism or internal repression and external aggression, because they are interdependent. They need one another. They perpetuate conflict because they benefit from it. They need conflict and they benefit from it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is we have...
Well, excuse me, Moji, could we start to wind up now, please? Sorry, would you mind just 2 minutes?
Oh, okay. I guess the women had more time from the global north. Anyhow, we are dealing with ideological populism versus democratic populism. Ideological populism is dictated by an ideology, regardless of what its ideology is about, whether it is hyper-capitalism or Marxism-Leninism, East and West, if you will. And it is dictated from above by people who are powerful. I call them savage rather than civilized. Sometimes they wear the garb of religion, as in Iran's supreme leader. Ideological populism versus democratic populism, i.e. Mossadegh, Cornel West, Mamdani, and Bernie Sanders. I wish I had time to explain the relationship between internal despotism and external colonialism and why they translate into that we need to resist ideological populism and try to support democratic populism, which is at least was tried or has been tried by non-aligned movement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Moji. That was very interesting and leads on to a whole new set of subjects about despotism and populism, which maybe we will explore in the future. Thank you so much. Right, well, we have to now move to our last speaker already, who is Ariet Güttinger, who is speaking to us today from Switzerland. She is a historian and a psychologist, a member of the board of the Swiss Movement for Neutrality, which I hope we'll hear a little bit more about. Ariet, please, if you're ready.
Yes.
Active neutrality.
Thank you. On Switzerland's neutrality. In 1907, Switzerland signed the Hague Convention on Land Warfare. This means that Switzerland is bound by international law to remain neutral. What does this mean for Switzerland? A neutral state does not participate in wars. A neutral state defends itself with armed forces. A neutral state does not provide mercenaries to the warring parties. A neutral state does not make its territory available to the warring parties. Switzerland practices active neutrality. It stays out of foreign conflicts. It acts actively and in solidarity. Here is an example. During the Franco-Prussian War in 1871, the French Bourbaki army fled to Switzerland. 87,000 French soldiers were disarmed in Switzerland and distributed throughout Switzerland, where they were housed, fed, and given medical care until the end of the war. Also, the International Committee of the Red Cross is also based in Switzerland. The good services of Swiss diplomacy are internationally recognized and have contributed to the resolution of conflicts in many parts of the world. How is Switzerland's neutrality perceived abroad today? As a neutral country, Switzerland actually has a duty to call on countries involved in armed conflicts to abide by the UN Charter and international humanitarian law, to negotiate and to offer its good services. This has not been the case since the war between Ukraine and Russia. Since 2022, the Swiss Federal Council, that's the executive branch of Switzerland, has adopted sanctions against Russia that violate international law. The Federal Council and Parliament want to align themselves with NATO and the EU in terms of security policy. Federal Councillor Cassis has sided with Israel in the Israel-Palestine conflict. These one-sided statements have led to Switzerland no longer being perceived as neutral abroad. What are the consequences if Switzerland is no longer perceived as neutral? Switzerland's good services are no longer being used. Negotiations are taking place now in Turkey, Qatar, and in Saudi Arabia. How can we get our elected parliamentarians to commit to a neutral foreign policy again? What can we do to restore Switzerland's good reputation? Neutrality was such a matter of course in Switzerland that it was mentioned in the constitution but never formulated in detail or embedded in it. As the Federal Council has been disregarding neutrality for some time now, we want to enshrine neutrality in the Federal Constitution in a concrete and differentiated manner by means of a popular initiative. We want to have a new article in our constitution, which the Swiss people will vote on this year. And it reads as follows. Federal Popular Initiative, Preservation of Swiss Neutrality. Article 54.1. Switzerland is neutral. Its neutrality is perpetual and armed. Point 2. Switzerland shall not join any military or defense alliance. Cooperation with such alliances is reserved in the event of a direct military attack on Switzerland or in the event of actions in preparation for such an attack. Point 3. Switzerland shall not participate in military conflicts between third countries and shall not take non-military coercive measures against belligerent states. This does not apply to obligations towards the United Nations or to measures to prevent the circumvention of non-military coercive measures by other states. Point 4. Switzerland uses its perpetual neutrality to prevent and resolve conflicts and is available as a mediator. That's the paragraph we want to have it in the constitution. This year, the Swiss people will be able to vote on the neutrality initiative. This initiative specifically obliges the Federal Council to pursue a neutral foreign policy that is also perceived as such internationally. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariet. That was very interesting. I hope you'll be able to tell us how that proceeds, because it is exactly the active neutrality that we should all be seeking. Some countries, of course, do not have a constitution, but they have laws and they work on precedent. This is a very, very interesting piece of work. And hats off to those who put it together. Were you one of the people who put it together?
Yeah, we are now working in Switzerland. We try to, we have seen the problem is that our our government don't react on situation, they have to react. 3 days ago, Israel entered with the army the UNRWA compound in East Jerusalem and destroyed buildings there. It is absolute horrible and a shame, and our government has to say something about that. They have to say, Israel listened, it doesn't go, it violates that and that and that and that. That's the thing we think our government has to do, to react and not to sitting near Trump and to play, oh, so nice, Mr. Trump. It's a shame. In Davos, on this WEF.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for all of us.
And we pay with our taxes this WEF. It's a shame. And our army is protecting that thing.
Yeah.
It is kind.
It is unbelievable. But in a way, there's been a slow slide up till now, and now it's gathering speed. And for example, the UN resolutions against Israel have been in place. I don't know, 60 odd UN resolutions that Israel has broken, but nobody stood up to enforce them. So of course, we end up in the wild west of the world. Right. Well, thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you for the wonderful chat. We have some questions, and I'll just run through them, and then perhaps our panelists can choose which ones they would like to answer. So I'll run through, I think we've got about 6 questions. So the first is, have there been Warsaw Pact of NATO members who became members of the non-aligned movement? So have there been Warsaw Pact countries who are now in NATO who became members of non-aligned movement? The second question, that's more of a statement. Do you in NAM speak about John E. Burton's teaching, thinking, expression on analysis and resolution of conflict? I think it's extremely important to make this known. That is John E. Burton's teaching, which we could all look up, and perhaps one of you could answer that. Do we use it? Bart Kier is saying, is neutrality the right word? Maybe peace is an activity, which I think Ariet has been just showing us what they're doing in Switzerland, working together, trying to understand each other.
Neutrality is a peace project. Neutrality. If you do neutrality, then you have peace.
Understand. We'll run through all the questions together. All right. Right. So the next one is about militarization. From Nika, I've been researching the official restoration of mandatory military service in Croatia from an anti-militarist perspective. But I was wondering if such restructuring could possibly signal a stronger autonomy in the unfortunately unlikely event of the country joining a movement such as NAM. What are your thoughts on militarization in the context of such movements? So that's military service and militarism increasing, and in schools, which we mustn't forget. Militarism is being taught in schools. Agneta is saying that Switzerland is neutral, but sad to inform that Switzerland has been in northern Sweden many times in US NATO war trainings.
Problem.
So Eva is saying on Switzerland, what will be the wording for the referendum? What do you suggest it is, or is it still under negotiation? And the final one the European governments have used media to convince the people that Europe is in danger. Russian attack is imminent, so militarization is necessary. How can we link NAM to security whilst avoiding militarism? So I don't know if you all got that. If you'd like to answer one or two each, that would be great. Biljana has her hand up, so perhaps you'd like to start.
Yes, if you don't mind. I got inspiration, and thank you very much for the active chat box, and that gives us inspiration for further elaboration of these issues. Talking about peace teaching and these authorities from the field, I have bad news to share. The peace studies are on their deathbed. They are definitely dying all over the place. Even the famous peace institutes like PRIO in Oslo or CIPRI in Stockholm, or already closed down COPRI in Copenhagen, and not to talk about United States Institute of Peace, which now bears the name of Donald Trump. I mean, it is, I fully agree with Moji that this is Orwellian world, and this security thinking is overcoming and actually pushing aside everything that is connected with peace, meaning peace by peaceful means. That is the essence of the UN Charter. So I don't think that militarization of NAM, of membership of NAM is, or making, you cannot be non-aligned to any military bloc and then to end up into a new military bloc. So you are fighting against something in order to become just like them. That's not, that is a replication of the imperial status quo, and I like this quotation about war being a racketeering. And it is exactly what NATO is doing, what Donald Trump is doing with all the member and non-member states, actually, like Japan, like South Korea, like all the allies around the world that should make his global NATO. And I would like to directly answer to our Croatian colleague who is concerned about or thinking about the military service. That is actually a pattern that already started in Germany, and I think maybe Elke knows much more than me about this intention of the government to prepare the population for the forthcoming war. And that is fear-mongering. When you sell good the fear, then people say, okay, I give up the freedoms, I give up other means to develop the society or to resolve the problems with the neighbors or the others. So let's prepare for dying. And of course, the elites are going to send the poor guys, children into the front lines, not their own children. So here I just have to admit one thing to Moji, that I am a leftist, I'm a Marxist, sorry, but it is how I was raised and I remained a leftist. But in my view, left is very compatible with peace, and somebody wrote in the chat box that Tito was extraordinary personality. Tito was not perfect. He had some weaknesses, of course. We can talk about that some other time, but he really was a remarkable person in comparison to the leaders we have nowadays, not only on the territory of former Yugoslavia. Unfortunately, some of them are women. Some of them are women who advocate more NATO, more peace true strength, as now it is this phrase. Yes, that's very Orwellian. So NAM is something completely different. It is, somebody asked about the membership of countries. Do you know, when you see the map of membership, entire African continent, all countries, all states of Africa are members of NAM, of the non-aligned movement. Some states are coming from Asia, some from Latin America, Oceania, and so on. But from Europe, you can find only 2 states, and for Azerbaijan, I'm not even sure that it is really a European country. Geographically, it may come to with some part, but most of it belongs to Asia, but it is not of any importance. Belarus is the other country. So Belarus, of course, was a part of former Soviet Union, then became independent state, and now you find Belarus in NAM, which is surprising. The only former socialist country that is a full member, not even Serbia, that has a specific military neutrality as its position currently. Not even Serbia has a full membership status. All former Yugoslav successor states, actually, of Yugoslavia are mostly have a status of observers. Macedonia is not even an observer because it is so loyal to Washington that they don't even try to mention it. But the interesting case is the one with Malta and Cyprus. They had to get out of NAM when they were invited in the European Union, which means that these European structures prevent states to join free and very fluid and not flexible associations such as non-aligned movement. I really cannot see the logic here. If European Union is, soft power, normative power, blah, blah, all that story about peace and values, and they prevent their members from joining these underdeveloped countries that are together in this specific form of cooperation. So yeah, that is the very sad situation. Of course.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank
Sorry.
you. I could listen to you all day, but I think the panelists would also like to answer some of those questions. Who would like?
May I briefly?
Yes, of course, Moji.
Although I'm a man, you appropriately want to give women the more platform, but I think men from the global south need to be heard as opposed to further marginalized. I believe I want to, regarding militarism, the question about militarism, I want to invoke Hannah Arendt, the Jewish Holocaust survivor philosopher who talks about banality of evil, i.e. normalizing evil. And that's what we are seeing to the horrific levels, banality of evil, including genocide being justified in the name of the Holocaust. And so I believe that to the extent that the countries, the former country called the Soviet Union, to the extent that the countries that have the ideology of militant Marxism-Leninism, to the extent that they become, because of the ideology, a counterpart, an unwitting counterpart to rabid imperialism, And they enter into a pact, of course, as enemies, but interdependent as in violence. And what we need to do as civilized people is to resist that violence that is shared in all kinds of ideologies, especially when they are imposed from above by, through populism. And that's what I call ideological populism, in contrast with democratic populism. Mossadegh, Mamdani, Bernie Sanders, and others who translate the needs of we the people from the bottom into simple to understand practices and concepts, so that, for example, Bernie says 1% versus 99%. That simplification of an extremely complex set of, political, economic issues has educated a lot of people about the nature of violence, the violence of poverty, systemically creating poverty, so that people, especially in the global South, have no choice but to go to either East or the West. This is why Mossadegh said neither East nor West. Hence
Thank you,
the
Moji.
movement.
Elke, would you like to answer any of those questions?
I don't know whether I can give a concrete answer of question, but I want to focus again of this, what I have done as citation. Powerful countries are still pushing bloc confrontation. That means to look now, especially I look to Africa, and this confrontation and this powerful this try to destroy. I take the example of Burkina Faso. I think you've heard about Ibrahim Traoré. And I think he himself is somebody who really realized the sovereignty to make this country not to sell, to build up with the people together. And that is, I don't want to say the neutrality which I see there, but I see the sovereignty extremely, which I wish that all the countries can get. And he himself also, he speaks a lot of these presidents in Africa and everywhere who are not on the side of the people. But nevertheless, we must realize that Vietnam and all the presidents who come together to say no war, peaceful relations together, that is the most important. And therefore, I speak also about the multipolar world. We have to stay with them together. And to have this, it's a difficult look, but I would, if you can, one day discuss. But I wanted to mention Ibrahim Traoré. That was somebody who I think we should look on what he is doing.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And throwing the French out of Africa has also been a very interesting, more recent move in terms of changing a focus of a country. I think, Ariet, would you like to answer some of the questions that were in the Q&A?
Yeah, I didn't see the questions.
You can see them.
Switzerland.
Yeah, I think you can see them, but I could run through them quickly. Whoa, there's a few more come up. Well, the first question, which hasn't been answered yet, has there been a Warsaw Pact of NATO members who became members of the non-aligned movement. I don't think anybody's answered that, and I don't think any of them have been part of the non-aligned movement. And I think also, I'll find another one for you to answer, Ariet. You should be able to spot them yourself through the Q&A link at the bottom of your screen. Let's just move on here.
Hab ich alles vergessen.
Right, I'm talking to Ariet at the moment. So Nika was talking about the official restoration of mandatory there's the military involvement and the increasing militarization in Switzerland. If such restructuring could possibly signal a stronger autonomy in the unlikely event of the country joining a movement such as NAM, what are your thoughts on militarization in the context of such movements? So I suppose this is the thought of militarization in the context of the non-aligned movement, and how much militarization would be part of it, and stretching that point a little bit, how much peace can we achieve from it? So perhaps Ariet, you could move on that.
Yeah, I think also in the NAM, the different countries, they are defending themselves. To have a self-defense, to have an army. We have also an army, but we don't go outside the land. And I think the countries are armed, but they don't join organizations like NATO. But the problem is these neutral lands, countries have the problem that from outside there are they try to eliminate neutrality. And in Switzerland we have this partnership for peace with NATO, and this is not partnership for peace, it's partnership for war. And this was signed by by a minister of Switzerland. He didn't ask the population, do you want it? And that's really a problem, and we have to go back and really to cut these ties with the NATO. And it's all the time, also in our military department, military persons in Switzerland in the military department have problems if they are for neutrality. There are, the situation is that these persons are a little bit put out.
Okay.
We have big influence from outside just to destroy neutrality. That's a problem. Yeah.
I think we have to look no further than Ukraine to see how neutrality was destroyed, which had kept the area peaceful for quite some time. Elke, you wish to speak to this, yes?
Yes, I want to say that these countries who had the neutrality and are fighting now to defend it again, as Austria and Swiss and Ireland, they are endangered, or they had just lost in reality the neutrality. But we in Germany, we had not the neutrality, but we have a campaign, a new campaign, Germany Neutral. And that is the experience we have done with all the maneuver, who has done with the NATO maneuver, who has crossed Germany. every year, also during the COVID. No, but this is we start this campaign also for a step for peace against every military help in our countries. And we want also to go with this further on to say we have to go out of NATO. We combine this, the neutrality as a fantastic idea also for people who are not so very politicians. But with the neutrality, very quickly they have the feeling we will not be took in something what is destroying or war. No, so our campaign is growing up around the world. We have supporters, and I will give you. Perhaps I will write you also the address of our campaign. Germany neutral.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Elke. Right. Well, that was some very interesting answers, and I think moved our knowledge on quite a lot. I want to also correct the answer for non-aligned movements in the Warsaw Pact or the ex-Warsaw Pact countries. But Belarus is apparently, according to Eva, part of the non-aligned movement. Russia and Ukraine are observers. Well, I don't really know what that means. As an observer, that seems to be like you have, you're probably going to run with the hair and the hands.
Belarus is a member by BRICS.
Because of BRICS, yes, yeah.
Okay. Because so many connects are between BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation, the same countries, or G77, they are so important also for the interests of the global south, but they make the discussion also by ASEAN, and that means that is the same countries are in different different organizations.
Yes, I get that.
They put the fight against the superpower. No, really.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Right. Well, we're just out of time. I see Moji has his hand up. So we could take one last response from Moji. If you're quick, please, and then we'll just have to wind up, sorry to say. So Moji, okay. Carry on.
Thank you. I want to give an example of why self-defense, real self-defense, I want to give a global South example of why real self-defense, genuine self-defense, is an integral part of nonviolence, which to me means neutrality and NAM. In Iraq, when ISIS, the US and Israel created ISIS, attacked the Sinjar in northern Iraq and wiped out, committed a little genocide, they didn't have the means to defend themselves versus Kobani in Syria. The Kurds had the ability to defend themselves, therefore they did not get wiped out by ISIS. So self-defense, genuine self and community defense is an absolutely inseparable part of neutrality, nonviolent resistance to the savagery that is perpetuated, industrialized by the global North often. Thank you.
Well said. That's a very good note to end on. Well, what can I say? That was fascinating, and I hope you've all managed to read the chat. And I'll save the chat, and if you want to have a copy of it, please just email me directly. I think everyone has my email address. So really, just to sort of wind up, it seems that in the long term, neutrality and non-alignment together with the BRICS movement, could lead to the consolidation of a multipolar world. It could lead to maybe new emancipation movements and the empowerment of developing countries. Particularly, it could also lead to decoupling many countries from the dollar. And of course, speaking as Guan, hopefully the disbanding of NATO. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your wonderful input, to our speakers and to our listeners too. And just say that if you registered, you will get a copy of this tomorrow, once we've tidied up the ends. And hopefully we'll be able to share it around, and we'll put it on the YouTube channel. I think you've all been amazing. And this is a series of webinars, so please look at some of the other ones we do as well, because we have to proceed with the work we're doing. Guan is primarily about the abolition of NATO, of course it is, but as you have all indicated, many of these organizations link in and out of each other. It's a dance of kind, but it's also, people want to survive, countries want to maintain themselves and protect themselves. So we have to be mindful of that as well. And before I actually go, I see Mia has put a very long piece in the chat about active participation, etc., which is interesting, and I hope you've all had a chance to read that. So this is 2026. It hasn't started off too well, but it's going to be a long year. But let's stick together. Let's support each other in our work as much as we possibly can. I know we're all busy. And let's make the end of this year a far more hopeful place to be than the beginning has been.